Hello and welcome to Politically Incorrect Knitters. My name is Anne Pinkava and joined, as always, by the lovely Deplorable Knitter and a special guest today. But before we go there, let's talk about our sponsor, Chicken Lady Fiber Arts. You can get 20% off your purchase at chickenladyfiberarts.com with this month's code Chickadee20PIK.
I'm not home this week, so did you have any yarn to show our lovely people so that they can see? And I'm sorry, guys, Neapolitan is still the giveaway. It's that lovely pink and brown, and I will put a picture of it right here so everybody can get a refresher. And the way you win that is by commenting on this video and get entered for the drawing at the end of the month. So that's that.
She has lovely colors, such as our Politically Incorrect Knitters colorway, which is quite pretty. Also, we have Meh, which is, a personal favorite of mine still. And hang on. We also have the Isom colorway, which is a lot of fun. So anyways, check out her website and check out her newsletter for when she gets new stuff in.
Yep. And make sure you're signed up for it, because if there happens to be a 5th Monday in a month, she usually sends a free shipping code. So get on that so you can get some good yarn deals.
This week, we have a lovely guest on, the lovely Pokidot of Pokidot Shop, who makes the most beautiful little plushies you have ever seen. And she
You have
also,
one?
I do.
How
They're
fun.
awesome. I actually had to steal it back from my sister-in-law before we did this interview, just so I could have one to show off.
So we have Pokidot with us this week. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. I am Pokidot. I am the owner of Pokidot, where we specialize in wholesome gifts for families, everything from bibs to clothes to children's books. Everything is is probably the most wholesome place on the internet.
Oh, that's very nice. And how long have you been making your items?
Well, as far as Polkadot is concerned, it's been maybe a year, or this is probably the 2nd or 3rd year. I kind of lost count. But I've been a crafter, maker my whole life. The first thing I was ever taught was how to make Barbie clothes out of my socks.
Wow.
And I've just been given every sort of craft kit, paint by numbers, sewing. But my favorite thing to do is sew. I do crochet also. I can't knit, so unfortunately, spoilers, I don't know how to do any of the things you talented people can do. But I have tried. I do have knitting needles, but they just sit in a drawer.
Well, hang out with us long enough. We'll get you on there.
I would love to know.
It's not so hard. So you've been crafting forever, and then did you just end up with a surplus and you're like, I need to do something with all of these things? Or
Well, it sounds kind of cliche now, but during COVID, obviously everybody was working from home. And in general, you weren't really going anywhere. So it forced me to fall back into love with sewing. And at a certain point, this is what I do full time. It's not something I had done before full time. I had a regular crunching numbers type of job. At a certain point, I was just ready to take this to an actual make it real. Like, it's something that I've always wanted to do. I've had a shop in the past that was online, but I'd given that up because work happens, and my responsibilities at my job kind of prevented me from doing anything, and I didn't want to let that happen again. So I saw a small pocket of time that it's either I'm going to jump and take this leap and start this, or I'm never going to do it. And with the encouragement of my husband and other people, I just went and did it. And fortunately, it's worked out.
that's awesome. That's the dream. I mean, Anne and I still have other jobs that supplement our crafting, because it's hard to do. It's hard to sustain, and it's a scary step to take too. So that's really cool that it has worked out so well for you.
Yeah, I'd like it to get further, but baby steps. And it's been hard because I'm naturally not a talker. I am not an extrovert by any means, but doing this really helped me feel more comfortable to put myself out there. Because before I was kind of just silently crafting, even when it came to my other shop many, many years ago, I kind of never showed who I was. I never really put any real personality into my work, but now everything is sort of getting in a direction where I have a signature. Before I was simply making things, but now I'm sort of uh, putting a little more life into it.
That you can really kind of see the personality and the personality in your plushies. Like I've seen before on Instagram or Twitter where you have your sketches of what your upcoming plushies are going to be. All of like chicks behind you for Easter and like just the little rows of, well, what if there was one like this or like that and all the cute little faces and the displays you do when they're like interacting with each other and you have little scenes set up. They're just so cute every time you see them.
Thank you. One thing that's really important for me, especially because I do craft shows like in person all over the place, was to have a little break because we know that with the news, everything is so dreary, everything is so doom and gloom. There's so much outrage. There's so much almost like an addiction to being anxious, an addiction to being mad at each other for either justified or unjustified reasons, depending on who you talk to. So when it comes to like my displays, how I post on Instagram, I really want to have a little sweet break from all of that. Just a little like a breather, just have a little relax, enjoy, go into a different happy little place for a while. You go back to the news if you want to, but if you'd like to stay and just have a little fun time where really not a lot happens, just a little happiness, that's what I'm all about.
That's very cool. And I know it was many years ago now because I was pregnant with my second kid who's like 8. But Obama was in office, and every time I was like addicted to Fox News at the time, and I would just watch it and I would cry because I'm like, I'm having babies and this is the world. And finally somebody said, you have to stop watching the news.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, you can totally take it in, but also we need those places where you can go and you can just be, because if you have a steady diet of it, it causes all kinds of anxiety. And I mean, I was a wreck. My mother is like, you are pregnant, you cannot be a wreck like that, you have to like take care of yourself. And it's true, even for just everybody, you just have to be able to get away and have some fun, for real.
Exactly.
So that's really cool.
Exactly. Yeah, it I always just think, especially coming speaking about myself, I'm naturally an anxious person, so I really don't follow the news very religiously. Like I do know what's going on. I of course, like everybody else, have opinions about what I like, what I don't like, what I'm for and what I'm against. But in general, I prefer to live on the sweet side of the internet and live in the hold on to as much sweetness as I can, because I mean things can all go badly, and I would rather just at least have uh the relaxation of looking at cute little animals for no reason and looking at cute colors and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's absolutely necessary for me because I'm it's uh there has to be some kind of a release valve, and people release things in certain ways. I mean, there are some people who notoriously like to post on Twitter to start fights. Well, X, I'm sorry, on X to start fights. Some people like to take jabs at each other. Some people just like to comment on stuff. But for me, I find making things, especially sweet things for families and kids, much more fulfilling than starting wars.
You mean you're not out there wreaking havoc on X?
No,
Come
not
on.
me. I'm not the one. I mean, believe me, there have been times where I've wanted to really get in there. But you know what? The internet is so inundated with people who are doing that.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that I'm doing this to stand out. But I just think that if I chose the path of uh, mudslinging and starting fights and all that kind of stuff, first, I wouldn't be happy with myself because I don't want to be constantly angry and upset. Um, but I also think that if I'm trying to do something where, especially something that I believe in, I would rather do it in this way than making people angry.
Right. Kind of, keep the happy, adorable animal brand, what that is, so that
Yes,
people can go there. and just let that be that.
Exactly. Because I mean, I don't know. It was a long time ago when Target did that thing with their like questionable t-shirts and all their like LGBT, etc. stuff. I just thought that, you know, if you're gonna be a store, to me, stores shouldn't have a place for that. If the store is all about that, then that's the store for that. But if I'm going into Target to get milk, I just want to go and get milk. I don't want
Right.
ideals of any kind thrown at me where I have to make a decision of, am I for or against this? I simply just want to go to the store. So, especially with my stuff, although again, I have opinions, I lean conservative, but I wouldn't necessarily say I'm fully conservative. There are subtle things where I, as an example, when people ask me, oh, do you have anything for a boy? I'm never going to suggest a dress because that's just not something that I'm for. But it's subtle. It's not overt where also I make bibs which are an American flag. I'll only make an American flag bib because I'm in the US. I'm not going to make
Right.
anything else.
Right.
But I just think as a store, if you're going to have a storefront and if uh political affiliations or religious affiliations or anything like that, if that's not all that you do, I don't think it has a place there. So again, I'm like staying on the safe side of, like you said, cute animals in a happy world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. And I would get flack for some of my patterns because, like, I put out some stuff that said like Trump and I was kind of like, people get upset, and I'd be like, did you see my name? Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't pretending to be anything other than what I am. So
Yeah.
I mean, I do
And
knit other things, but
exactly. And I've made like pro-Trump onesies for family members because they're having a child. So I've done that on the side. I just don't want to, as far as the Polkadot name is concerned, I don't want to beat anybody over the head. Not that that's the wrong thing to do to make patterns like you do or anything like that. I just don't want to be overt in my approach to it. I'd rather be a little bit more
but
subtle.
that's my branding.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right.
Like similar to like in the 80s and 90s, at least.
And yours is not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When, you know, like even the 50s, 60s, all the classic type of stuff, like even cartoons, depends on what you watched. But still it was not overt. And that's sort of my choice to do that.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yep. And you do have some very sweet baby things. I scrolled through your Etsy, and there's all kinds of cute little booties and like the crocheted dresses, and I give you credit for sewing because I can sew, but I would rather do almost anything else than sew. So that's excellent.
Yeah.
And we're glad to have you here.
Oh, thanks. I thought that because I didn't knit that I would be kind of not, you know, I couldn't relate to you guys,
No.
but at least you still are makers. So I think we all have something in common in that way. But knitting, like I said before, I tried to knit. I really did. I bought knitting for dummies with the needles and everything, and I really tried to do it. I just can't do it. There's something about it that I don't know if I don't have the attention span. I give you guys a lot of credit for being able to do the knitting itself and make patterns. I don't know how you do it. I really don't know. It takes a special kind of brain that I don't have.
But I also crochet, but I feel that there's a place for everything. So like I will crochet the stuffed animals or baby blankets and stuff. I don't have the attention span to knit that. But when it comes to like a hat or mittens or something, that's the things I'm always going to knit. So I just, I feel like there's space for all the different crafts, and it's good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's some beautiful things that people can do with knitting that I'll never be able to do with crochet. The stitches are just not the same. And I think unless you are a person who makes things, you really don't understand that. So, which is sort of, it's difficult, especially as a small business, when you're trying to sell handmade things. And the person who doesn't know how to make things thinks that, oh, well, it's probably worth like $5 because I can get it on Temu for 99 cents, or I can get it from anywhere else for a cheaper price. It's hard to communicate the all of the effort that goes into a handmade thing. So like even with knitting and crocheting, the time you almost never get your time back.
Right.
And that's just part of it. You're even the materials, like the cost of some yarns, like I'm sure you guys use much better quality yarns than I do. But just in general, the cost of supplies just is, it's crazy. And it's like, again, especially if you don't make things, you really don't, I think makers appreciate handmade work on a different level than people who don't make things.
Right. That you find that a lot, even if you give someone something as a gift. They're like, "Oh, that's nice." And you can tell of the kind of dismissive attitude versus, "Oh, wow, you made this for me. I'm going to use this." Between people. But I have a question, a little bit of a controversial question, because I used to knit hats to sell. And I would get a lot of people who would say, "Oh, well, you have to charge so much more for this because it takes you so much time." And my kind of argument back would be like, "Yes, thank you, but you're also not the person who would pay me that much money. And I'm not going to price myself out of the market entirely to, chase whatever, minimum wage standard you think I ought to have for when I sell hats." Is that something that you run into at all, or are you just that speedy?
Oh no, it definitely happens. Especially I mean, online is really, really difficult. Like I get far less sales on my Etsy than I do in person at craft shows. I mean, people are going to those specifically looking for things, but even there, it took me a while to get to a price point that people were willing to pay and that I was comfortable with. As an aside, which I actually haven't announced or anything, I have a consignment with a local store called the Depot. They're all over the country, but the one particularly that I'm using right now is in New Jersey. They do a lot of work with families and kids and foster kids, so it's definitely something that I was willing to get linked with. But when they were asking me about my prices, to figure out the consignment deal, one of the things that we did have to negotiate was the amount that I'm actually going to receive, because obviously I'm not getting 100% in a consignment shop or a consignment place. So pricing is a real challenge. Um, like there are people who paid me a lot for a single hat just because they said it was a set that they wanted to break up, so they wanted to pay me a little more just to have it. But on average, like even with the booties at the price that I priced them at, my plushies, everything, there's always enough people who say, "Oh, that's too much," or "Oh," they talk amongst themselves saying, "Oh, I can just get it somewhere cheaper," or "Oh, I can just make that for you cheaper," or something like that. That definitely, I think, is one of the bigger challenges with small businesses, especially crafting small businesses. There's so much. Not only do you have to try to stand out with the quality of your work, but you also have to compete on price. And there's certain things that I'm not willing to basically give away. Like my blankets, especially at shows, are a little, I mean, even online, they're on the pricier side for the size that they are. But because of the time, I can't let it go. I just can't.
Yeah, it's hard. And I've done in-person craft shows. I haven't done any really since COVID, but I used to do a lot of them, and it's hard. And I had a hat that was $20. It was a big, thick hand knit hat with a nice pom pom on it. And some girl was asking her grandma to buy it for her, and she goes, "That's crap. We can go to Walmart." And it's like that hurts you inside, but also people don't understand what it is. They don't understand the effort and the time. And even if you can make something quickly, you should still get paid something for your expertise. Yeah, it might only take you 4 hours or 5 hours to make a baby blanket now, but it used to take you 12 hours and you have really honed your, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot that goes into it and it's hard.
I
It's really
agree.
hard.
Absolutely. There's so much skill that goes involved into making things. It's not just making something that's cute or making something that's nice, but the design of it. It just, there has to be something to your work that is yours. Like a lot of people, I'm sure with your hats, a lot of people make hats, but there's something about your hat that makes it worth the price you were asking. And it's just sometimes hard to convey to people. It really is.
Yep. And you're right, the cost of materials.
Yeah.
The hat I'm thinking about was made out of acrylic. I think we had it priced at $20, but still it took almost 2 balls of the nicer acrylic yarn. And so like we were gonna get like $6 profit. Like people have no idea that that's like what you end up with at the end of the day. It makes it hard.
Yeah.
My husband always says you can feed your stash, like that, like you can get more to do the next project. That's kind of been the goal for a lot of it. So
yeah, starting out with the craft shows, my initial goal was like, oh, well, if I just make my table, I'll be very happy with that day because at least it was worth coming.
yeah,
You know, but I mean, unfortunately, that's sort of the lowest benchmark that a lot of us crafters set for ourselves because otherwise, if we don't make even, like you said, like the $6 profit or at least a little bit of something, even I mean, unfortunately, like sometimes even $1 over, at least give you a little something for your work. It feels nice.
it
And
does.
obviously necessary too, because bills.
Right.
Oh, and I was gonna say too, okay, so I don't sew, or I made a quilt one time and it was just squares, sewing seams, flipping. That was it. Like I
Mm-hmm.
have no quality. I have no skill in there. I was super impressed, okay, with the little sheep that came in because anyways, I said bought this for my sister-in-law. But I was, again, as someone who doesn't sew, looking at all the seams, looking at the little limbs are weighted, but the rest of the body isn't. There's like little beanies in it and the different materials and just the cuteness overall. It's really difficult to get the face right. But I'm just sitting here like, this is a well thought out little toy. Like, this isn't just a, oh, yeah, whatever, throw it out there. I'm like, there's a lot of effort in one of these.
No, thank you. Yeah, I really put a lot of thought into the things that I make, especially with the plushies. I love plushies in general. I mean, I always have like a lot of us have like a favorite stuffed animal of something, a bear, a bunny, or something. And growing up, I always like to study them and see like how are they made and why do I like this. So thinking about the lambs in particular, I know that it's nice for babies to have like a tactile experience. So it's weighted just enough so that if they want to hold on to something, it's something soft but interesting for them to hold. If they want to squeeze it in the middle, it's nice and soft so they can hug it if they want to. And I try to make things too that they're safe so that the tail's not going to come off, the ear is not going to come off. Like all the seams are necessary. And in general, I try not to have too many seams because I think that that takes you out of the illusion of it being a thing. So if there's too many lines, I find that to be distracting. But I am happy that you like my lambs.
It's really cute.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. I
And
like them too.
yeah. And I also see you have a pile of stuff behind you. I don't know if you wanted to.
Yeah, sure. This is a bunny that I did recently for Easter. I don't know if you can see him.
Oh,
He's a little fuzz. He's holding a little carrot because my theme for the spring is a carrot patch because I try to make a little theme every time I go just to make it a fun experience for kids. So they're all going to be collecting carrots. He's got a little cottontail at the back, little booty. And these two have a little bit of weight in the feet just because, again, I find that kids like to have sometimes a little something different, but overall, really soft. And they come in, as you can see, several colors. I also have my chickens. My little chicks came out yesterday. The bunnies have been up for a while. I'm going to list the ones with the clothing probably sometime this weekend, if not the following week. But I'm sort of in a heavy production mode, trying to get as many of them done as possible since craft season starts. I feel like tomorrow, but I still have a few weeks.
yeah.
Right.
Oh, they're super cute.
Thank you.
I have my 8-year-old that I already mentioned. They have so many stuffed animals in their bed that I go in to kiss them goodnight, and I'm like, "How do you sleep in here?" And I'm sitting here looking at you, going, "Man, I should get them some of that."
I
It's a
wouldn't.
problem, but I can't help feeding it.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't hate if you did. But they are washable. So in case they get knocked
Oh,
around, they're really easy care. I try to make I again, not unlike the design, I try to put a lot of thought because knowing how messy life can be, you don't want to treat a plushie with kid gloves. You want to be able to knock it around. Sometimes they throw it, sometimes they eat with them. they just need to be easy. So almost everything that I have in this shop, aside from some very specific things, everything is easy care. But yeah,
It's
if you
always
want
nice.
some chickens, they're up.
And they're so
We'll
cute.
see. My husband though, okay, so my husband's the first one to say, do not buy any more stuffed animals, but he is the man that let the kids buy the $25 animal at Walmart that was this big that they can barely even carry around. So now we have that thing. So
I don't know, what do people do with those after the holiday? Like I had one when I was a kid, a very large bunny that I received. I don't remember what happened to it, but I don't know where people put those enormous bears for Valentine's Day, and I don't know where they
well,
go.
currently it is being carted around to every room as people enter and leave it. So we'll see how long that lasts. But yeah.
That's cute. It happens a lot of times at the craft shows where a child will go up to my booth and they're like they want to touch everything, and I sort of have to. I'm not convincing the parent or grandpa, grandma, whoever's with them to buy it, but I would just say if you want to touch it, you're welcome to touch it, and inevitably they fall in love with them. So I understand. I'm sure your husband probably feels the like, oh, it's cute and they love it. So I know it's maybe 20 feet tall, but they need it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but seriously, it's hilarious because I'm the one that's with them all the time. So I'm like, no, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. And then daddy's there and it's like a free for all. And I'm like, okay, never mind. There's no
Isn't that always
rules.
how it is? There's always like one of them who's like, who tells you no, but to them it's like, yeah, you can have it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just funny. But so they're very cute. That was
Oh,
that was
thanks.
my point. I have a kid that would be obsessed with those.
Oh, I'm very flattered. It always is nice to hear that people like the work. Again, as a horrible introvert, I always hope that somebody likes it, but I would never assume that they will. So it's always a really nice surprise to get really good feedback. I hope this year, with the craft shows and with everything else that I plan on posting, that people still find enjoyment, whether they buy it or not. I still hope to give everybody a little smile when they see my post. We did have a book. Well, we do have a book in the shop called Gooseberry Pie, and then yes, and the number of people who have given us such glowing reviews because of how much their child loved it, how much they like to read it together. Like you never get bored of finding the positive impact that you've made on someone. Like the thought that that could be a favorite book of theirs, or that one of the plushies could be a favorite thing that they had growing up. Like that's there's no feeling anywhere close to that in anything else I've ever done.
And
Yeah.
it is an absolutely adorable book, by the way. We haven't mentioned it yet, but your husband is a cartoonist and has done the illustrations. Here, I mean, they're all pretty, but they're,
Yeah, isn't that cute? He's so talented. It's like my favorite thing. I love showing people his work. It's incredible. Like I don't know. I mean, you've seen some of my doodles maybe where I just kind of draw very, very basic. I don't know how he does what he does. Like that is such a special thing that he created. I know that it's really meaningful to both of us that that book exists. We only have 8 right now left. And I think we've sold over 600 since the launch.
Wow.
We have
wow.
one book in almost every state in the US. We have some in Canada. We have some in England or Ireland. I forget which one. Like they're in several little pockets. And we just that book was just way bigger than we expected. It was a little idea that turned into this thing. Like we had an opportunity to read to kids in person at a school. They were first graders. We have the book in libraries so that anybody, if they wanted to pick it up and read it, take it home, it's there for them. It just was an amazing thing, and I'm looking forward to book 2. I know what it's going to be about, so I'm not going to say anything. But it's so cute, like achingly cute.
That's awesome. So your husband illustrated it. Who wrote it?
He wrote it too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he did the
Very cool.
whole the whole thing. The only input that I had was he'll show me a drawing just to see what my reaction is, and if I like squeal and squeak over it, he's like, then that's a good drawing. Like that's sort of the barometer of, is this a good direction to go or not? But otherwise, he doesn't need me for much with those, other than fulfillment. I do that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, he's just tremendously talented, and I know that that book means so much to him.
Yes, I gotta say, sorry, before I say, sorry, the evil weasel cracks
Yeah,
me up every time. Anyways,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. No,
But
I love that
no,
book.
it's so beautiful. But actually the first time that I had heard of you was actually your husband was on Friday Night Tights, and they're talking, the Ghost of the Badlands is coming out and he's doing that. And it's near the end of the show, and it's like, okay, everyone's going around, what do you have to promote? And he gets this look on his face like, can I promote my wife's shop? And they're like, yeah, go ahead. And he's like, well, we do this book, we do Gooseberry Pie, and she makes plushies. And he's like almost blushing, and he's so proud of you. And I'm like, that's the cutest thing. Also, I'm gonna check her out. So I mean, kind of here we are because of that. But
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they are really cute, and you're hilarious. So that's all great.
Thanks.
But
Yeah, yeah. It's
anyways, yes.
yeah. Without his encouragement, I would never would have been able to do this. Even talking to you guys, it's something I never expected to do. Never would have done. Wouldn't have had the courage to do it. But he's always just saying like, just try it. You can do it. You're talented enough to do it. Just don't get in your way. So it's uh I would say he's necessary in my life, but that's as far as I'll admit.
All right.
Well,
You wouldn't want
and I
him to
think,
get too big of a head.
No,
yeah.
no, no. We both need to keep our egos in check. So I'll say he's good to keep around.
Useful.
That's how I feel
Useful.
about my husband too. Because I don't want him to get too overinflated, but I can tell that the feeling's mutual, because you can tell when she talks about gooseberry pie that she's just super proud too. So it all works out in the end. You guys are like each other's biggest fans, which is how it should be.
Yeah, it's we were lucky enough to find each other and find that we have sort of the same ideas when it comes to creativity. You take your craft really seriously. You don't like to cut corners. You want to do your best, because not for ego, but because you want to do your best. It's just, you don't do your whatever your profession is. Like his is drawing. He wouldn't do himself any favors if he sort of didn't, push on the gas every now and again to strive to be his best. I wouldn't do my work. I think that if you don't put enough of yourself into your work, there's kind of no point in doing it. So we have the same philosophy in that it's sometimes it's hard, sometimes you don't want to do it, and you get into creative blocks and all that kind of stuff, all the challenges of being a creative person. But fortunately, because we can relate to each other in that way, I think that's what makes us work the best. We can't work together because he has his way and I have mine. But when we bring both of our personalities together, both of our strengths together, and that's where you get things like Gooseberry Pie that has had such a positive impact. That's where you get even my shop, which is slowly having a positive impact. It really does take both of us.
And I think
That's
it's
very cool.
it sorry. I really like too the what kind of production mentality that sometimes people think of arts, art proper, and then craft is over there and they don't really touch that much. But for both of them, you really need that determined, okay, I got to do it again. I got to do it again. I have to make sure the quality is where you want it to be. I have to practice. I have to refine my method. I want it to be better. And kind of like you said, in looking at the fine details of what you want to create. Okay, what parts what parts of the plushie are going to be this way? What's it going to feel like? Can the kids wash it? There's a lot of different parts of that. And it's thoroughly thinking through those details or thoroughly, practicing what you want to put on paper to get the end results you want. That there's kind of there's a repetitiveness to it that I think some people shy away from. That they kind of that the practice of it is sometimes difficult for people.
Yeah, I think there's something, I'm pretty sure it's called the 10,000 hour rule. I think that's what it is, with drawing, where you have to draw and practice for whatever number, say 10,000 X number of hours. You need to do that in order to improve and to get to your skills up to a certain level. I think it applies with all crafts, and not to, I guess, make it a little bit uh, of a hot topic, but I know AI is so prevalent right now. And a lot of people like AI because you don't have to put in those hours, or at least it doesn't seem like you do. It seems as easy as typing a prompt and you get some results. I think I respect creators that even if the work doesn't look great the first time, even if it doesn't look great the second time, eventually you're going to come up with something that is your greatest work. So when you cut corners, I don't think that it's as meaningful and as human as good as, something that you took 10,000 hours to make, or say learning a stitch took you 2 weeks, a particular one. I would rather see someone spend the 2 weeks, even if it takes them longer, because they've learned it, they can now manipulate it, they've mastered it, than if you just get one of those knitting machines that you just, swipe, 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 or you crank. There's a time and place for those things,
Yeah.
but the hours are
Right.
totally necessary. I think you can't use those little shortcuts until you do the hard work first. Someone who doesn't know how to draw, in my opinion, shouldn't use tools which are seemingly shortcuts to the end result, because that really to me only shows that you care about the finished product. You don't care about learning anything.
And it's kind of like how you mentioned Temu before. It's like, oh, well, it's cheap and it's this. It's like, yes, but it's not quality. It's not, woohoo slave labor. You have all these, it's like it's cheap, but it's cheap for a reason. And you have AI, it's easy for a reason because it doesn't have all that background there. And I remember trying to remember the name of the guy, but he's an oil painter and he's on Twitter and he was talking about kind of the difference between art and the amount of time if you are an oil painter, okay, that takes a lot of hours to make lovely realistic things in oil paint. That just does. But that kind of the same thing again where people didn't necessarily want to put in the effort and they're doing, that limits them and what they can create, and they kind of keep to different art styles because of that, and we get different art as a result. And then we have, with even less, I mean, like there's a lot of different effort and a lot of different disciplines of art. But if you have people who don't want to put in that work, so they have less effort art, and now we have even less now in AI, that they're not even taking the first steps to move forward. And it's cutting out a lot of people who might be encouraged to move forward in their art. And it's like, oh, well, no, I'll just write in a prompt. I'll never have to sit there with a pen and paper and say, well, it's not great, but here's my idea.
Exactly. I mean, when you take uh, seemingly, at least what I would say is a shortcut, like using AI, your work is as a result of other people's work. So if, say, 1,000 artists decided that what a cat looks like, and a cat for some reason has 5 feet and it's got 4 tails and it's got an eye in the middle, that's what your cat's going to look like, simply because you couldn't be bothered to draw a cat that you see in real life. I think that relying on those kinds of tools, I know that there's several arguments to be made for and against AI, but from where I see it, if you don't put your stamp on what your interpretation of a cat is, like if you just take a quick little sketch of a cat, and it doesn't have to be perfect, or if I want to make a plushie of a cat, and again, doesn't have to be perfect, at least it's a point in time from your perspective. It is solely yours. And without that, I don't think that, like if you bought a plushie of a cat on Temu, and again, it had 5 feet and it had four tails and it had an eyeball and it had, I don't know, zigzags or something like that. If years from now, if someone found that AI generated art or that plushie or whatever it is, they don't really know what you saw. And I think that whether you have kids or not, or whether you make any impact on anybody else but your small circle, I think you should have at least a little bit of a stamp, like I was here, like you know how people draw on like a windshield or something like that. Your creativity, your work, whatever the work is, whether it's writing, painting, drawing, music, it's yours. And it's, I think that that's such an important thing. I don't know how else to better communicate that creativity is such, it's something that you can't buy, and it's something that you shouldn't try to look shortcuts to doing. If you truly love the craft of music or painting, drawing, sewing, knitting, crocheting, anything, if you truly love it, you'll spend the time and it doesn't feel like work. I think that people who try to take the shortcuts see it as work, and I don't know why you would do it if it's not pleasurable in that way. Like I could I spend several hours a day, I don't even know how many. As soon as I get up, I come down here and I sew. Before I take a shower, before I eat breakfast, I'm just constantly doing it because I love doing it. I don't really care how many hours it is. I don't want to take shortcuts because I just love the creative process. And I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. So I just think that if you want to get something on Temu that looks handmade, that's, you know, that's your choice to do it. But I think it is as soulless as a drawing that you didn't make yourself.
That's That's really interesting. And I also think that part of the problem and part of why we're here is because of social media. Because you see all these people that have these perfect curated, look at how wonderful everything is. Look at my finished product. You don't see the fact that they maybe took that sweater out 6 times before they got the neckline on it right and stuff. Like sometimes I will just show people what a crap hole my house is, because I'll be like, look, I'm a person, I'm a parent, I got life, I homeschool. This is it. And I think that it's cool that we can connect and meet people like you. Like, and I'm in New York and Anne's in South Dakota. We've met in person once. So like if there wasn't social media, there would be none of this. But also like it causes people not to keep things real. Like there's gotta be I get what you're saying about the work, and I think that's a lot of it. But I also think that when you're starting out and you have these examples of people who make it look so easy, it gets discouraging, and they're like, why I can't do it like that, I'm not going to try, I'm not gonna. So I get that like too, but
Yeah, it's important to not be fake online. I know that it's very easy to do that, where we have filters, we have artificial backgrounds, we show people just our best. But I think there is I would say a beauty in showing the realness of humanity, showing that, I mean, my messy patterns there and my not so neatly folded fabric and the stuff that's here. Like that's what we're people. And if you don't show that, I mean, I've resisted showing my face until now. But if you don't show humanness to you, and you don't interact with people as you would in normal life, like even the people who put on a mask online and who are all huff and puff and big and bad, hiding behind a screen. I mean, whether you talk to people like that in real life or not, you should be as authentic as you can. So like you say, it's showing that things are sometimes a mess, because that's humanity. It's who we are. We can't we shouldn't lie to ourselves, really. And I think that it's doing a disservice to like say in knitting, to the craft of knitting, if you don't show that there are mistakes, here's how you might fix them if you want to show how to fix
Mhm.
them. But at least just showing that someone who's like, I don't knit, but seeing that other people who do knit also struggle doesn't discourage me from doing it. It's like, oh, well, maybe I can do this. But like you say, especially, I mean, I see it a lot on
Yeah, it
Instagram. It's like the perfect little setup, the perfect display, the perfect everything. And, that's not reality.
mhm. Yeah, no, I so I homeschool my kids and we go to a co-op. And so at the co-op, I teach knitting and crochet, and I will be doing a project with my students, and they'll be like, "But yours is so great." And I'm like, "I'm 40. I started knitting around the same time you guys did. So in another 30 years or so, you guys will also be this great. It takes time. You have to work at it. You can't just look at me and be like, oh, here, I'm showing you how to do this. That's why I'm teaching you, because I know how to do this. I'm going to show you guys. Like, and I think social media has taken some of that away too. I mean, there's some great tutorials and stuff, but there's just so many people who, like, I saw a yarn dyer going on a rant about how she'll never share any of her techniques or how she does stuff or whatever. And but how are people ever going to learn? So you're worried about losing your revenue, but I don't know. Is that the most important thing? I don't know. Anyway, sorry.
No, it makes perfect sense. I 100% agree with you. There's
But
people who know secrets to a lot of different crafts. Like even for me, learning how machine embroidery works, I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know what machine I needed. I mean, I have a small one now. I want to get a big one eventually, but there's not a lot of people who will tell you that. I mean, specifically with Gooseberry Pie, we bound the first 200 books ourselves. We watched,
Wow.
yeah,
that's
we
That is
amazing.
impressive. Yeah.
yeah, the hard covers and the soft covers. We did them all in a
Oh,
room together. So you can imagine how that would be with two creative people who work at
yeah.
different speeds. But we
My
did
husband
that.
and I would have gotten divorced, so God bless you.
We did it through COVID too, so I guess we're in
Oh
good
my
shape.
God.
But
And I
anyway,
gotta say, I mean, okay, learning curve and everything else, but it's like I love the mentality of, well, we'll just make it ourselves then. And then you do. I love that. Though I'm assuming that you changed later.
oh, we had to because there was so much demand for it that we did go with an outside printing company, but they're local. They're like in the US and actually I don't know how many towns away from us. They're drivable. But we
Nice.
do we do go with the local because we do want to, if we're going to print books, and we do want to do other ones, not just Gooseberry Pie, but my husband's convinced that my drawings could turn into a book. So anything that we do with printing, we want to do it within the US. We don't want to, even though it's cheaper and easy to go with like, I think it's called Print Ninja or some other type of international service. It's much, much cheaper than doing it here. But we want to do as much domestic stuff as we can and do a lot of it. If we can do stuff ourselves, we do it.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's a kind of a thing too, where it's like you have to pay for what you want to see in the world.
Yes.
That's like, well, oh no, well, I would really like some more domestic production, but the domestic production is expensive, so I'm going to pay for difference. Like, well, if you want there to be more domestic production, unfortunately, you got to pay the higher price.
Yes,
But
exactly. Like even the labels on my plushies, I don't think I have them on the lambs because those were before I had them. Those I had printed domestically. And there is almost no service that I could find in the US that would make that specific label. But I wasn't willing to go with an international provider for that. I feel so strongly about, like you say, if you want to see change, if you want to see anything happen in your own country, you need to support people in your country, even if you can get it done cheaper, faster, whatever. And maybe even the stuff that we have here isn't ideal. Maybe it's a slightly different shape, color, whatever. It's not as important as doing with your own. Like I think so much of what we've used to do in the US, we don't anymore. So much of our industry is done cheaper elsewhere. So if we have an opportunity to support a local place, I would. When you had done craft shows, DK, I just have a question. Did you
Mhm.
find that there was a lot of cattiness or like uh I guess measuring up of each other, or is that a modern thing? Because I haven't done shows oh gosh, I don't even know how many years it was before I started up again. But I noticed that with the ones that I've done, there are so many ladies who, instead of saying, being nice to each other, they're measuring how busy each table is versus their own.
Yeah, I think that that's a natural, um, I I don't know, it's kind of our social media thing where you've got it's a competition, whereas, you know, yeah, I see that. That always a lot of competition, and I don't get it. Like sometimes, so like somebody was saying to me, "Oh, you should do this festival. It runs in like August." I'm like, "Nope, I don't do festivals in August because you know what? Nobody wants to buy my knit hats in August. They're too hot." They don't even think about the fact that winter will be here in a few months. And so I think people, instead of like looking at the market and seeing what's going on there, they kind of just get like angry when they see that other people are doing well. I mean, yeah, I'd get frustrated when I would do stuff and I wouldn't get any sales, and other people obviously were, but I started looking at it and it was more of a like, I don't do anything. If I do a craft show, I don't do any from like June to August because it's not my season. People don't want what I'm selling. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was not a very good answer. But yes, there's a lot of cattiness, and I think that people, instead of looking at like why maybe they're not doing as well, they're just angry at other vendors, which makes no sense to me. And I was always like, I okay, I do this, I act like I'm a super outgoing person. I'm actually not. Like if I could just sit at my table and knit, I would be fine with that. But I would always make an effort to like talk to the people around me and, oh, how long have you been? Like I think that there's a courtesy thing that people have lost too. That's maybe a part of it.
Yeah,
Because, I don't have to be your best friend, but like let's be pleasant. You're sitting directly next to me for the next 8 hours. Like let's pretend that like, you don't hate me. I don't know.
yeah, I noticed with a lot of shows that the focus of the show tends to not be why we're there. It's more seeing who's doing better than me, like in quotes,
Hmm.
like who has regulars, who has this or has that. And instead of looking to see how can we improve, like, oh, this person's doing really good, how can I learn from them and see like what are they doing, like what's their secret sauce. I'm not going to directly ask, or maybe I will. I mean, I've never asked because I'm not
Hmm.
bold. But where am I lacking? Like you say with the social media thing, it's very similar where someone's doing really well, someone's got a lot of followers, someone's got a lot of engagement, and clearly they're doing something I'm not. And what is that? And I think it's
Hmm.
unfortunate that we let our own insecurities and jealousy and things like that sort of cloud our judgment. And then people, especially when it comes to customers, like you say, you make an effort to talk to people, you try to be nice, like even around the people to your, whether they're in front of you and back of you to the sides, you want to at least be nice to them, be friendly. Like we're all sort of, in my mind, and it's probably kind of silly, we are fighting against big stores. Like
Hmm.
I see myself as fighting against Timu. I have a thing with Timu, I'm sorry.
I can tell.
um
Ever since all those Super Bowl ads, you're like, dang it.
yeah, yeah, you know what? um but like I'm, to me, I'm fighting against stores like that. I'm fighting against people going to Target, and I'm not saying that those things are bad, but I'm trying to stand out above them.
Hmm.
So if I'm focused so much on what my neighbors are doing, we're all fighting the same fight. I want someone to go to me instead of going to the store. So I don't know why I would be nasty to the people around me. We're not all making the same thing. Even if there's 5 people making baby stuff or knit hats or anything else, there's always something unique about your own work. So I think that it's it's sort of missing the opportunity by being catty. And sure, it's frustrating when you're not getting the sales and stuff like that, but to me, I just see it as an opportunity to figure out what else you can do. Like if you truly want to do this, um, you shouldn't sort of just sit there and look miserable. I know that it's very
Right.
easy to do that because I've felt miserable. I've been sweating and like
Yep.
it's sometimes it's really rough and you don't know how the show's gonna go. But if you don't have a positive attitude and sort of even force it when you're not feeling it, it's gonna be even more miserable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely seen booths or walked into stores before where the owner's like, oh, people again. I'm like, why am I here then? You don't even want to sell to me, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
Mhm.
it's so unfortunate when a shop owner feels like a customer is an inconvenience. Um, and I think that if you're making stuff and you don't feel joy in making it, all of that negativity in like a not a hippy dippy sort of way, but all that negativity goes into the item. If you're not having fun, people will know you weren't having fun making it. So it's really important to hold on to the joy of making stuff and being friendly even when you're not feeling very friendly, just to, I don't know, release the good feels that went into making the thing to begin with, because otherwise, like you say, if the shop or the booth or whoever you're dealing with is sort of like then especially as a customer, why am I going to be excited about your stuff even if it looks
Right.
okay? Something about it's going to be off.
Right. Now, and in the yarn world, you said you don't go to like as many expensive stores, but like the local yarn stores, they have they're notorious for being rude to their customers, which makes no sense to me. If I got to be surrounded by yarn all day and knit in my off time, I'd be the happiest person ever. And yeah, I would go into those yarn stores and nobody would speak to me. They would speak to the people that they knew. But as if I came in as like somebody that hadn't been there before and they didn't even greet me, like, why am I going to come here and spend my hard-earned money?
And I wonder if it's kind of the same thing, like we find this in the knitting world, where the whole canceling each other over petty things. It's the kind of bickering and destroying. And I kind of wonder if that isn't, in part because you're also a yarn dyer and your sales aren't doing very well. And if you can destroy the other person over there who's popular and doing well and people like them, and create sort of a controversy to sort of puff you up that way, there's that bit of, envy, jealousy, and, trying to make yourself the hero here of she's awful, go with me instead, that you have that sort of pettiness between people.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. Like I think that it's such a shame when people do that. I make every effort not to. I don't know that I've been perfect at being 100% poly positive all the time. But I think that if you don't, at least if you're not aware of how you're interacting with people, and if you don't even notice why people aren't coming to your booth and you don't think maybe it's me, why they're not coming, or especially in the yarn store, like you said, if I had an opportunity like in a fabric store, if I could just be surrounded by fabric all day in one sewing machine, I would be a happy little piglet. But it's a shame that it's like, do you not even love what you do? Like, why are you in this business? Like, or and even the people who do the craft shows or even an online store, if you kind of don't put in the effort to show your best and make people feel good about it, I don't know why you would want to do it. I mean, it's hard enough hearing from customers negative comments of like, oh, I could get that made somewhere else. Oh, I can get it somewhere else. Or I just don't like you, because that happens. Um,
Wow.
yeah, I had one of the worst comments of my life in one of the shows. It like it rocked me. It really, really did. It took a lot of effort not to cry. I'll be honest.
Wow.
But because it wasn't even just a personal attack, it was such a dig, not at my work, but like as me as a human being, that it was like I feel really sorry for you that you felt the need to say that to me. Um,
Right.
but anyway, like customers can be harsh too. So why should we be harsh to each other? I
Yeah.
just, I don't know why you would want to do that, or why you would want to be harsh to a customer. Like, technically, you're there because you want to make money. You need them to buy from you. Otherwise, if you're just there to show off your stuff, then just, make an account somewhere and post your stuff and don't worry about it. But if this is your business, you have to, you really have to put in a lot of effort to, you know, make everybody around you happy, both your customers and your competitors. Like, I think it would be important to not have a bad reputation. There shouldn't be like, oh, there's so and so in the corner, let's just avoid her. Why would you want to do that?
Yeah. I don't know. I think that people, once again, they just don't know how to act. And as far as the person who almost made you cry, I've been around long enough, and I've been called enough names in my life now that I've started to realize that it's not me. People are bothered by the fact that I'm confident. I mean, I go around saying that I'm the deplorable knitter because I don't care what they think of me. If I cared what they thought of me, I probably would have chosen a different name and not made Trump patterns, right? And so when you kind of come to the point where like they're putting their unhappiness on you, it gets easier, I guess. So like whoever was like mean to you, that's because they were probably a super unhappy person inside. So just know that.
Yeah,
That's what
I
I
kind
found at
of
least.
I snapped myself out of it pretty quickly. Because actually I'll say what she said, because what difference does it make? I'm sure she's not gonna watch this because she's not a fan of mine. So she comes up to me at the show and she's like, she just sidles up and she says, um, do you have your own kids? And I said, no, not yet. We're hoping, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, well, how old are you? And I'm like, I told her because it caught me off guard. And she's like, um, you shouldn't try to have kids. There's too many messed up kids in this world. And with your age, you're gonna have, and I was really shocked that that's what you're gonna tell me, lady to lady, at a craft show where I have all of these sweet looking little things, and that's what you choose to say to like to
People
a
are
stranger?
nuts. They're nuts. Who says
It,
that to anybody?
I don't know, but it was it was the worst thing that you could be told to the worst thing that you could have said to a stranger. Like, I don't know why you would choose to say that. But again, even when that happened and I almost like kind of lost it, I kind of just like eventually, answered her questions and she was done what she needed. She slit my throat enough, and then she got bored and walked away. But I still was like, okay, that happened.
Yeah.
Let's just
Who,
So
swallow
yeah, who
it.
I'm
walks up
not
to you and says, there shouldn't be more of you in this world.
Yeah,
I think more of you would be really messed up. I think you would ruin a human being.
yeah,
And like, what?
yeah. So I was just like,
yeah.
okay, well, she's probably a really unhappy lady. I will pray for her and whatever she's
Mhm.
going through, because it must be super bad for you to decide that you needed to cut down a stranger today. And once I decided that that's what I
And
was going to do, I just was like, all right, well, hi everybody. Would you like some baby stuff? It's really cute.
and I'm laughing. I'm not laughing at that whole thing because it's awful, but it just made me think of like the keyboard warriors. Do they actually say these things to people in real life? And she probably is one, and she probably was like out to wreak havoc. And it just makes me laugh because I usually console myself thinking if these people were in front of me, they wouldn't say this to me. So it just, yeah, no. Some
You
people
meet
are just
I,
awful.
you
yeah,
meet all
I had,
kinds.
yeah, I had one experience of a keyboard warrior in real life, and it wasn't anything as personal as that, and she was probably 17, and she said something to me that was just like really rude, really harsh, and it was like all it took for me to do was to stare at her. Like, did you mean to say that? And then she like sort of like half shuffled away all sheepishly. I'm like, yeah, and it was somebody I at the time worked with. And I'm like, we still got to work together, honey. You're just what was even that? What was that weird? It really was like a typed hate comment, like instinctive, and I'm just staring at her and she's like looking at her shoes and shuffling off, like conversation over. What did you mean? What was
Yeah,
that?
so weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I
And I
mean,
think
go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I've said it already. I just think that it's the we live behind our screens most of the time. So you get in front of another person and they just don't even know what to do. It's like they melt down. They have no idea like what the proper interaction is.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, there's enough haters and warriors or whatever they're called. There's enough negativity on the internet that, unfortunately, I guess in some cases it does spill over to real life. I mean, the negative stuff that people see, I know it's happened before where it has real world consequences, like how many people really absolutely fall apart because they're getting bullied or they're experiencing something super negative online that again, that's probably part of the reason why I like to stay on the sweet side of the internet, like the wholesome stuff. I would prefer to be around stuff that makes me feel nice, as opposed to adding more to the negative soup that we're living in right now. Like it's there has to be a balance. We can't, and I don't think we should encourage people to be nasty to each other all the time. Yes, there are situations where we're going to disagree. There are plenty of people that I don't agree with, but I still think that uh, there's no there's no good reason why you should treat people poorly. I mean, if on the internet there are people who choose to say their piece and just it's over, fine. But when you're constantly harassing or you make it a point to cancel someone, like you know that's a common thing. I, I don't know what drives people to do that. I kind of really can't wrap my head around why you would do that. Because without social media, what would people be doing? Like, if you disagreed with someone, you're going to argue or you're going to fight, and then that's the end of it. But social media, unfortunately, takes up so much of our time and so much. People really put a lot of emphasis on how people perceive them, what everybody's opinion is, and it has a lot more weight than I think the person who makes the snidey comment. I don't think they fully realize what that means to some people. Like especially with younger kids, I'm sure if they have someone who's like, oh, well, you're ugly or you're whatever other negative thing, that's a huge deal. But the kid saying it to them, or even the adult who chooses to bully people during video games or something like that, they don't really know what that does. It's sort of, it's like saying good morning to someone or saying like anything. Uh, Words make a big difference. So I think it's important to choose them carefully, no matter who you're talking to. Or maybe
Yep.
not carefully because we can't censor ourselves, that's being fake, but at least be thoughtful about it. At least,
Right.
think about the other
Like,
person.
is there any value added
Yes.
now that you've said that thing? Like that woman that said that to you, did that add any value to her life? Probably not. Did it add any value to yours? Certainly not. So, like, what's the purpose?
Yeah. The only thing I got
So,
was a good story. But
right.
otherwise, so I won in the end. Ha, lady, take that. But yeah, like, but
You'll be
really,
I was mocked for a day. You'll be mocked however many times the
yeah,
story is
Yeah.
yeah,
told.
this is online now. So who's really the one? No, but really, like it just it uh interacting with people is such a delicate thing. I think that we really need to appreciate the fact that we're dealing with each other as human beings. And if you choose to interact with somebody in a negative way, I guess just recognize that it doesn't necessarily stop there. Like I'm not going to forget probably for a while what that lady said to me, and not because it affects me like that I think that she's right or that I'm crying about it or anything like that. But I'm not going to forget the time that somebody was that cold and that hateful for absolutely no reason. Uh, so we take for granted that we're dealing with each other as human beings. I guess if we were dealing with like a chat bot or something, it sort of doesn't matter. Like if you play like a video game like GTA or something, you just go around punching everybody. It kind of doesn't matter because it's an NPC. Who cares? But we're not NPCs, we're humans. So, just be nice. Doesn't hurt to be nice. Be neutral or be nice, I
Yeah.
guess would be preferred.
Kindness is free. I
Right.
mean, like for real.
It's true. And really, if some people just don't want to be kind or nice or whatever, or someone doesn't like the sweet stuff, like, I mean, even after this, somebody might say, like, oh, your stuff is whatever. That's fine.
It's not
Just you don't need to, I don't know what you gain by saying it. Just,
so growing up, I have an older brother who has no filter. And I just remember my mother saying many times, like, you don't have to say everything you think. Like, that's just a really good rule to live by. Like, just because you thought it doesn't mean everybody else has to know that you did. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Like
sorry.
it's no, it's the best when you have older people in your life who choose to tell you every opinion that they have, or even younger ones, like the like a smaller sibling who's like, does the same thing.
Mhm.
A filter is uh I guess a filter should be maintained. I mean, I don't necessarily have the best filter sometimes. Uh
I
Not
find
online, not online, in person.
on online,
No.
fantastic. Your filter is right there. No,
Yeah.
I find a friend of mine that we worked together when we were younger. She would always get in trouble and I wouldn't. She was very good at like having a regular filter like the whole time, when you're talking to people or disagreeing, there'd be like a respectable amount of escalation, when you're talking with people. My issue was is that I wouldn't say anything for a long time, but once I finally snapped and said something, then it would be like, actually, that was very rude, Anne, and you should have. It's like
And that's
actually
why
your
I'm
real
laughing because I
opinion
know this.
was pretty bad. And it was always so funny to me though, because she would get in trouble, I wouldn't. Why? Because the level for me to snap was much higher than her perhaps getting a little irritated with people. So that we she'd be like, "Oh, Anne's so nice. She doesn't say anything. She's, just lovely." It'd be like, "Anne has
Anne's a
some."
ticking time bomb, let me tell you.
Right.
Just wait.
Right, but it's like that's not always the best approach. I'm just gonna say that out and out. But maybe we shouldn't do that all the time. But
Well, you know when to strike, and you should give yourself credit for that. There's always a
well,
positive way to spin things. So you do know when
I'll
to lay them out. And that's a skill. That's a skill that not everybody has, even if it didn't get you in trouble as much. You're good at getting out
I,
of trouble, like,
I,
dodging
yeah,
that. So that's another
that's
benefit.
hey, yeah. You could, being the sort of sneaky punk kid. Hey,
Yeah,
that will
right.
turn out later.
Were you the quiet punk kid?
I was the quiet punk. I was the idea guy,
Mm.
so that wasn't good.
No, I was pretty much basically the same person, except probably more quiet, and also punk and all that stuff too. Everyone would always be like, "Oh, you're actually not unapproachable and not angry all the time." I'm like, "Yeah, I just like the clothes."
We are coming up to an hour and a half. My light is almost gone. I
Mhm.
should turn on some light. But is there anything else you'd like to show off or promote before you go?
Yes, actually, really quickly. All right, so just as a example, that if any booties are bought, these are my puppy booties. You can see, I don't know about the glare, they're
Oh,
crocheted.
cute.
Everything in my Etsy is always packaged as a gift. It's hard enough to find a bag for something or have to box it or anything like that. So I always get premium boxes for all of my stuff. This is something I haven't released yet, but it's a little booty and bib set for Easter, little girl one.
Mhm.
So just as a thing, like it's really important for me to not only provide stuff that is a nice gift, at least useful, but I also package it too because I think it's it elevates something that someone, like we said at the beginning, might be like, oh, that's nice. I think it elevates it a little bit. So again, part of the presentation, being nice to people, but also providing a nicely looking gift. So that's what we're all about.
It's awesome. I very much love your stuff.
Thank you.
Check out your shop, polkadot.etsy.com, correct?
Yes.
And you're on Twitter or X, Instagram, anywhere else where people can find you?
That's it right now. I have sort of a Facebook, but I don't really update it very much. They have these weird validation rules for identity that, I mean, I don't have a driver's license that says Polkadot on it. So right now it's sort of not completed. But if I do have that in the future, I'll link it in my bios.
Sure. Very good. So enter to win our Neapolitan yarn from Chicken Lady by commenting. Make sure you check out Polkadot. Use the code Chickadee20 PIK for 20% off your order.
Check out her new
right,
her new
girls?
yarn. Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't mention before, but Chicken Lady Fiber Arts, that she's doing a different bird of the month every month, and she has a new kit coming out, that she's also doing the national park hats. So if you're interested, again, check out chickenladyfiberarts.com. And yeah, check out Polkadot shop because they're so cute.
They are. Thanks for joining us today. And hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.